What is up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. Wow, this week went by so fast. Yeah, I had play dates with my kids at the park. Then my older daughter, she got this new job at this taco place. So we ended up having a late lunch over there. It was cool. So everybody, then we came home. My daughter's hanging out. It's like my three kids. They have they're like little people in society with their own lives. So it's play dates. I got a 19-year-old, 10-year-old, 6-year-old. They all got things to do. So another thing is, excuse my face. I am not wearing makeup these days, not heavy makeup, because, and so obviously you see all the scarring because I'm detoxifying my face. And so the lady who's been coaching me on my skincare, she's like, when you start detoxifying, you're going to start noticing your face is breaking out more, and that's really to get all the impurities out. So I feel like this stuff is working because I see like brightness and clarity and smoothness, after all the beating of the face. But yeah, I hate my face is breaking out. And between my hormones, because I'm over 40, it's just like I feel like a teenager again. I really do feel like a teenager again. But this detoxification is necessary. But, anyways, in my last video, I was talking about the shooting of Sonia Massey, and it was such an unfortunate situation. And I talked about how, it's an indication of the reality that so many people go through, people of all colors, but specifically Black people. And the reason why Black people tend to get it to most when they're in exchange with white looking people or white people is because they are truly threatened by us. They have been projected the narratives that we're criminals and hyper emotional and all of these things, that we have no control or balance, right? And many of them, if they run into a Black person that has that, right, they will do things to antagonize that spirit out of us, right? And I always say that every Black person got a little Negro in them. So stop. Don't play with everybody the same way. Don't play with everybody the same way. But, regardless, that cop had an anger problem to begin with. Isolated from that situation, that was obviously an emotionally imbalanced person who had no business with a badge and a gun. And there's no way that a person with a mental disposition like that can truly protect and serve. And I think that's sort of what's the real conversation is, that, the vetting of the psychology of these cops are just as important as the training, right? And so when we're talking about police reform, really a deep psychological assessment, the right one, is needed. And we see through all of this American pediatrics and all that stuff that, the psychological institutions in America are not trustworthy, and they will promote a bag of garbage to the nation. But at the end of the day, police reform, thorough psychological assessment of these officers is needed. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of Sandra Massey situations pop up. So here we go. And I said this in my last video that, your Black conservatives who like to validate white people and make them feel better about themselves and try to make Black people seem ignorant and, at fault for everything that happens to them, they're on the mic talking about the shooting of Sandra Massey, right? And I caught some of Brandon Tatum's assessment where obviously he's trying to make it seem like this woman was such a threat to this cop when clearly, she was not. Like any reasonable cop, who look at that video would say, well, he was putting himself in a threatening situation by walking closer to her, right? The other cop was stepping back. He actually engaged his weapon to walk closer. So he was more of a threat to himself in that situation than Sandra Massey and that boiling hot pot of water that she had in her hands that she clearly set on the sink, right? And so, there's no way to justify that situation. But obviously, Black conservatives, they have to work really hard to justify why a Black person was wrong or try to minimize the situation. So here's Candace Owens talking about the situation. And I didn't hear Candace's commentary on the situation. I saw some Twitter feed saying that Cardi B or Candace was responding to Cardi B's assessment of her. And, say what you want about Cardi B. She is a harlot. She definitely promotes debauchery and whore culture, right? But, aside from that, common sense is common sense. Rahab, who was a prostitute, right? Even she was able to use her reasoning to get God's favor in some way. So we should never judge people. But I will say that Cardi definitely is not for the Lord. But she had commentary on Candace's take on the situation with Sandra Massey. So I was curious, and it popped up in my feed because Don Solomon was commenting on it as well. So I'm going to listen to it with you.
Of course, as I have said since the beginning of time, there are mistakes that police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen, and the idea that now you're going to use this situation, and all the usual suspects are already involved, we know that Attorney Crump is already involved, to then try to make Black Americans believe that this happened.
I use usual suspects all the time. That's how I know this girl be leeching off of Black people's content. She just really trying to sound legit. Like, I know for years, just because I use very choice words. I'm a wordsmith. And so I use very choice words that a lot of people don't hear. They're not common phrases used. Like, I'll say, you're passionately ignorant, or they're on the bandwagon of ignorance, right? You don't hear that a lot. But so when I hear some of these commentators use some of those phrases, I know, because it's like it's about language and consistent language and speech, right? So I always use usual suspects because it's, you usually do. Honestly, these people play the same games, they play the same cards. So usually it's the same type of things or people that are going on. So for me, they're usual suspects. But she doesn't, let me stop because I'm not even about to go onto that rant, but this girl is a leech.
Simply because she was Black is pointedly ridiculous. So I am saying to Black Americans today, do not take this bait.
Thank God we don't
listen to her. Yes, what happened in this situation, I think he's going to have a very hard time, this officer, saying that he absolutely felt so threatened by boiling water that the only solution was for him to mindfully say, I'm going to shoot you in the face, and that's what he did. I think that's going to be a very steep hill to climb. But the reaction from Black America cannot be exactly what they want. There is a reason that whoever is in control of Joe Biden's account instantly tweeted about this, okay?
Okay, so my issue with Candace Owens, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're jealous of her. You're jealous of her. It's like, I am not jealous of sellouts, okay? People make their coins however they make them, right? I am not going to be a slave to the system in that capacity that I'm just going to go along to get some coins. No. Common sense is common sense. And if anybody knows me organically, they know I don't have a hateful bone in my body. But there are some people who are just ridiculous. They're part of the propaganda machine. They want to be a part of the propaganda machine. And so they just spew anything that they can to validate any given segment of America, right? So you have your white segment of America, you break the white segment down, you got all these different ideas or thoughts. Same with Blacks, Asian, Hispanics, everybody, Indians, Native Americans, everybody has a group, and within their group is a different disposition of thought. So there's always a echo chamber of thought to jump onto, right? And like I said, Candace Owens is a chameleon. And so she jumps on and leeches on to anything that she sees as very popular topic. So flat earth, it doesn't matter. So again, the one things that Black conservatives, they do is, like, this is how they make their coins, is they have to minimize the legitimate arguments of Black Americans and the arguments of perpetuated injustice and targeting. And they think that it's all about racism, but they don't really understand how soft bigotries and these conscious and unconscious biases play into so many different things. And Candace knows this firsthand because she just left a plantation, right? She left the Daily Wire plantation of thought, right? Where she was okay to talk crap about Black people, but the minute she talked bad about Jews, it was over for her, right? And so, here she's trying to be this voice of Black Americans. And it's like, first of all, nothing about the Sandra Massey thing for me, screams that this was political. This seems like it was an isolated situation that just got caught on body cam. But obviously, because it is involving a Black woman and a white cop who seem to be activated at unreasonable levels. I mean, he was so hot and antagonizing in that situation. You would think he was trying to antagonize her to throw the pot of water on him just so he can shoot her. Because this is a person who has no control over their life, and they're going into work, superimposing those issues into the job, and they're just waiting to relieve themselves by killing somebody. These people exist. These people target Black people because they have a low opinion about Black people. And Candace knows all about this. Candace is experiencing this, but she's never going to talk about that part of her experience because it doesn't fit her brand or narrative. She has to pander to individuals who abhor Blacks and Jews now because that is her base. But off of that, she's minimizing, politicizing this situation. And not every situation involving Black people and white people is about political gains or brownie points, even though they can be leveraged. And I said that in my last video, this situation can be leveraged by the Democrats for political reasons, but to create a political scenario around this isolated situation, it's just ridiculous and it's stupid. It's just, she's such a disingenuous person. Like she's pandering to a set demographic, how they feel. And I don't even think deep down some of those people really respect Candace. I mean, I've heard white supremacist type people say that they don't even respect Black people who sell out their own people. White supremacists are about preserving their own people. They have this mindset of preservation of white identity, independence, and culture, right? And on the same token, they could respect a Black person who has that same mindset about Blackness versus a person like Candace who betrays their people with their rhetoric and tries to make them feel better, even though I know a lot of those white supremacist type people know that there are a lot of Black people that are more intelligent than Candace likes to project. Obviously, she's given them the lower economic version of Black America, and so they're just eating up like popcorn so they can validate their own ignorance. But off of that, this is the point that I don't like, is the fact that people like Candace politicize issues that Black Americans bring up all the time.
It's because they think we're stupid. They think we're emotional. They think that we always respond illogically and emotionally, and that it's an easy way for them to shore up votes.
I'll be honest with you. I have yet to see a Black person really look at the Sandra Massey shooting and not respond to it exactly the way a normal person would respond to it. It was shocking. It was unnecessary, perplexing. I mean, I think a lot of people have a right to be enraged by the fact that this is perpetually happening to Black people when they're having exchanges with police officers, right? And, I feel like your modern day cop is that person who was either bullied during school or maybe they had no other career path. So being a cop just made more sense for them to do. And you can get some good, decent benefits being a cop, and depending on the area that you're serving, you may not have to deal with a whole lot of crazy stuff all the time. So, but I think a lot of these cops, right? I've seen a lot of cops that are super short. Some of these people, it's a self-validation thing. It's a way to empower themselves, right? Because nothing makes you powerful than being able to have a badge to carry a gun, and you actually have a lot of these police forces, they'll protect their officers no matter right or wrong. It's like a brotherhood for real. So some of these people out here taking their personal issues out on other people, right? And a lot of times, some of those personal issues are rooted in race. There are a lot of people that look at Black people as inferior. There are a lot of people, non-Black people, that look at intelligent Black people as a threat or an intimidation factor. There's so much to this Black American experience that is perpetuated even down to this day when it comes to race relations. I just feel like it's so disingenuous. And even the white supremacist people, they know their people. They know what their people are saying. They know what their people have the power to do. I'm pretty sure that they've heard, oh, this Black guy applied for the job, blah, 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 da, 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 da. I interviewed him, but I didn't really think. They talk to each other. So, I mean, to sit there and be so delusional that, racism, and honestly, I even had to wake up to it. I had to wake up myself because honestly, I was in my bubble. And I think when you think about the average Black American experience, no, people are not waking up fearing racism every day, right? But in their everyday lives, institutionally, there are racism. I mean, even down to, I have kids in a school district. There are teachers that teach our kids who are invested in Black people being lower and marginalized and having a universal poverty mindset, right? And when they meet Black parents like me, it's almost perplexing and threatening to what they can teach our children, right? There are people who are invested in Black marginalization, and they exist at every institution that touch Black people. And these people, they carry their bigotry covertly or overtly. And so when you want to say that this isn't about race, it absolutely is. There's always going to be a level of race in there. There always will be. And I think the people like her is just like they seek to validate white people and make them feel like, oh, you're threatened too, and yet they keep saying you're a threat to Black people. It's like they are a threat to Black people, some of them, not all of them. There are some really good white people out there. There's some good people from all groups, and I stand by that. There are good people from all groups, but there are some shitty, ugly, demonic people in all groups as well, no matter what color, race, whatever. And we need to acknowledge that they exist. And these days, they exist even more. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I just pray for God's kingdom. Like I said, just you can set it all on fire if you want to, God. But people like Candace Owens make me sick. People like her make me sick because it's like they're so caught up in the grift and the hustle that they don't like they just really like it's like a not natural affection. They are like a whore. They are whores to echo chambers, and they have to validate the echo chambers even if what they're saying sounds absolutely ridiculous and just really just don't need to be said. Like, it just really don't need to be said. Black people have every right to express themselves when they see injustices, perpetuated injustices like blatant, like Sonia Massey. Hopefully I didn't say Sandra. Sonia Massey. It's like, get out of here with that. People are so disconnected. And this is where the Bible says people will have no natural affection, and people thinking that it's just super evil stuff. No, it's this covert, I'm trying to inform you, I'm trying to give you some. No, people like Candace Owens are evil. They're evil. They may seem nice and do everything right. Let me tell you something. The prodigal son will get life before a person like Candace Owens. Because when he said he returned to his father, that was symbolic for somebody who went out into the world. They understood how the world worked and why they shouldn't be in the world, and they were able to see all of God's word play out and all his warnings play out in that world, and they went back to their father. There was nothing for them in that world. They squandered their spiritual gifts and their blessings, and they went back to their father, right? You know what I mean? Some people like her, they're apostates. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. But anyways, you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.